charts in Excel are a great way to represent the data. They are usually used in the last phase, more to enhance the visual appeal and readability of your data. While this is a great use of charts, but there is also the opportunity to use them during the analysis phase itself. Charts can help you unearth insights which may be otherwise difficult to spot by just looking at the data. If you plot multiple chart series one over the other, then it effortlessly shows insights which may not be as apparent by just looking at the data. Let's take a look with an example. This is the data for a cafe which has both dine-in and home delivery options. We have month-wise data for orders and the customer feedback. If you look at the number of orders, they're not very different from each other. Even the average feedback, which is 7.1 for dine-in orders and 6.5 for home delivery orders, is pretty similar. If you ask someone to explain the difference in the feedback, one may attribute it to a slight reduction in the overall experience when you order from home. But let's plot this data on a chart and see if it shows something additional. Select the entire data and go to the Insert menu and select a chart type. I have selected the bar graphs, but we don't see the feedback in this chart. If you look at the legend, we see that it should be shown as orange and yellow bar graphs. Then why is it not visible? The reason for that is the values for feedback are all under 10. Let me move this here so that you can see better. Whereas the number of orders is very high. So on a scale of 3500, numbers less than 10 are barely visible. To change this, we will need to create a new axis for the feedback score. And to make it more visually meaningful, we will show the feedback as a line graph and not as a bar graph. There are different steps involved to make both these changes on a Windows machine and a Mac machine. I will first show the steps on a Windows machine. If you want to see the steps for a Mac machine, then you can directly skip to that part. Right click on any of the bars and click on Change Series Chart Type. In this dialog box, you have the details for all the 4 chart series. Blue is for the number of dine-in orders. Orange is for feedback on dine-in orders. Gray is for home delivery orders. And yellow is for feedback on home delivery. Now for both the feedbacks, we will make 2 changes. The first one is to move them to a secondary axis. You can do that by clicking on this checkbox for secondary axis. And as I do that, you can see some changes in the chart in the preview here. The next step is to change their chart type to line graph. You can change that using the drop down. That's it, press OK. And the chart is ready. Now that we've seen it on a Windows machine, let's take a look at the steps on a Mac. If you use a Windows machine, then you can skip straight to the analysis section using the timeline. We're on a Mac machine now, and unlike Windows, we do not have a dialog box to manage this. Since the data feedback is not visible on the chart, it looks impossible to move forward. So I'm going to use a trick. I'm going to change the first feedback to 700 instead of 7. You'd see a small bar for January. Orange color is the feedback for dine-in as indicated in the legend. I will now right click on this orange bar and click on Format Data Series. Here I will select secondary axis instead of primary axis. The moment I do that, I see this axis on right. I will change the 700 back to 7. Similarly, I will change the first value of feedback for home delivery to 580. I see a yellow bar. Change the axis to secondary axis and change the value back to 5.8. Now I will right click on the orange bar and change the chart type to line chart. Similarly, I will do this for the yellow bar. The number of orders are now displayed as bars and the feedback is displayed as lines. We'll switch over to the Windows machine for analysis. Now that we've seen how to display multiple series in a single graph, let's see if it tells us more about our data. If we look at the feedback for dine-in, which is represented by the orange line, we see that it is relatively consistent. This indicates that the number of orders which range from 1800 to 2900 do not impact the feedback. The operations for food preparation seems to be streamlined. However, when we look at the yellow line or the feedback for home delivery, we see that there are variations. When the number of orders are low, the feedback is better, and when the number of orders are high, the feedback is low. We have seen through the dine-in feedback that number of orders does not seem to be impacting the feedback. Therefore, we should look at a different criteria that may be impacting the feedback. It could be the time taken for delivery when the number of orders are high that may be impacting the scores. This is an area that can be investigated further. This insight does not become apparent when we look at the numbers. We'll probably need to look at the data for a few minutes before coming to that conclusion. But with the chart, we are quickly drawn to this line of thinking. So not only do multi-series graph help you present your data well, but they are also very helpful for identifying insights which may not be easy to identify by just looking at the data. I hope you found this useful and thank you for watching.